Hello all and welcome in to round 9 tier 2, and we're here on board with the debutant of Brevis Sauvage. We're here a bit late on due to some lobby and whatever else EA wants to throw away issues, I would say. But we will see if we can get everything fully working. Now we'll have to do a restart regardless, because the lobby is a bit messy at the moment. We did see Brevis Sauvage go off there. Currently we have Josh leading us with a 3.9, and we will see the pole lap time around 3.6. I would say 3.7 maybe even 3.5. Meanwhile, let's see if we can get someone on a lap here after all of the early chaos. Pneumatic now coming around to finish his lap in the Haas. Welcome in, Ravage, into the chat. Welcome in. Pneumatic sets a time on the board. We've got Ethan in, was a 10th up on his time, but did invalidate. Meanwhile, and we've got Crypto leaving the session again. I'll get Crypto in as we see Josh now set a 3.7. And we'll see here. Can we get Crypto back in? I don't even know if GB's fully back in. I do believe he is. Let's see here. Yet to settle up though is GB at this stage. Don't know if RAF is lagged out. I feel like he did earlier. Welcome in, Addiction. Welcome into the chat. And welcome everyone else who's in here for qualifying around the Red Bull Ring here in Austria, where GB Sanderson leads the championship, and we're seeing, can he extend his lead? And we do see GB start his lap in the Ferrari, our championship leader. Addiction says there is some fast case here up to P5, and you could even throw Dobu in there. Well, Dobu is in there, because I can't read. Thought Dobu was P6 for a second. But, yep, we've got a lot of the quick drivers. Yet to see our championship leader set a lap time, yet to see P. Well, we actually have seen Dynamic Duo and Dobu here, P2 and 3 in the championship. And unfortunately, chat, for those of you who are here, we will have to do another restart. But let's see here. GB did jump up to P6. We've got Crypto back in. But Charisma around next, and the Red Bull sees a Ferrari of Ethan pulling out of the way. Addiction says time for another lap in the chat there. And Charisma's backing out of his lap. Meanwhile, Brevis out of fuel, it seems. Or maybe just letting the Aston through. He's entering the pit lane. Meanwhile, Ethan out on a lap here. In the Ferrari, already a 10th up through the first sector. And as he heads in the back straight, DRS engaged. Will Ethan in the Ferrari, another debutant along with Brevis here. And we have the returning driver of Tantrum Turnip as well. That is Nudomatic's brother, for those of you who are unaware. So, 2 debutants and 1 returning driver. And Ethan now, currently 3/10 up on his lap. Will he be able to keep it? He runs wide, but somehow keeps it valid. Must have lifted a little bit, but it gets a 3.6 in Ethan. Despite running wide off track, still gets the lap to be valid. Meanwhile, Ranga's out on wets. Meanwhile, we have a Diction around next. We do have yeah, Ethan says, how's that not invalid? And we don't know either. Meanwhile, Addiction crosses the line. Don't believe he improved on position there. Meanwhile, we do have Dubsy around. And Dubsy is bailed out of his lap. Welcome in, COD. Guys, have Awful joined. If you want to run no ABS, COD, unfortunately, I mean, you know. Oh, Addiction's in the wall, and he's gone off here at turn 7, I believe. I mean, COD, I have awful days too, as I'm sure we all do. But if I were to race tier 2, I think I'd have to take assists off, which would be painful. Meanwhile, we've Josh in the Aston Martin. COD, we will be having a restart, so I think we can get you in. So oh, and Josh will not improve here as he sees the Ferrari of Ethan starting his lap, and Josh has missed out on pole here. Can Ethan now improve here in the Ferrari? Meanwhile, we do have the championship leader out here, but doesn't seem to be improving. And Crypto in P3 is retired, called it a day. Meanwhile, GB invalid, despite it saying he was purple through the middle sector. And GB gonna finish the lap now, and we'll have a quick look at what the lap would have been. It would have been a 3.9. Meanwhile, we're gonna go back on board with the Ferrari of Ethan, but Ethan does not look like he's improving currently. It says he's a 10th down, exiting sector 2. But as he crosses the line, where will he go? It is 200 shy of his lap time. So even if you want to argue, that Ethan's first lap time shouldn't have stood, if it were real life, it wouldn't have stood. His second lap would have definitely got him up there. Thank you in the chat for the follow, Ethan and Skillax as well. Skillax is Brebis Savage. But what we're going to do now, chat, is a restart. And we're going to restart the lobby here. And I'm going to make sure to get the... welcome in, Skillax. Going to make sure to get the grid as well. Cod, if you're in the chat listening, you can join. But remember, ABS off. Oh, and it's also, chat, it's also put me in a car. It's also put me in a car. This game is impressive. It's put the commentator in a car. Well, we know what the weather is. There's going to be rain at the very end. But that's going to be actually after the race. So I think I'm just going to make this cloudy. But anyway. It's just going to be cloudy and then sunny and then cloudy, I guess. But wow, this game is impressive. It's truly mind-boggling how impressive the game is. One would say addiction. I was in a car because the game is bad. That's why. Anyway. Let's try. Well, at least now we have the stream started, so it hopefully shouldn't kick the stream off, because what happened before is that the stream did not even work. Oh, I don't want to join another lobby, that would be chaotic. Oh, that's not the right button either. Right, let us double check. Where are we? We're in Austria, so we are, chat. Like, how could you not remember that, chat? I'm disappointed in you, chat, that you couldn't remember that. Let us just leave it on light cloud dry. Because that is what it was. Rules. Formation lap, get off. Chat, when I originally created this lobby, the formation lap was off and the safety car, and now that I've recreated the lobby, the formation lap's back on again. Just the game is so impressive. Like, it just comes up with new and inventive things, you know? COD, just join off my profile. I'm having to set up the lobby here, so it's going to take some time. But just make sure you get in the lobby. Because I've got to get all the settings in. And if you're wondering what I was doing there, is that there's sometimes a glitch where the safety car turns off. So you have to like go to 35% and then go to 50 again so that it doesn't turn off the safety car. But it could still turn off the safety car. Like let's not rule it out. Right, who are we missing now? Let me get the grid here. We're missing, I believe, at least one driver. Brabus is the last to join here. I'll get Brabus in. And COD, if you're listening, pick a car, just not a Red Bull, because Brabus got the Red Bull, and I'm guessing he's going to be sad if you take the Red Bull from him. But he is also reserved, so I don't know. Anyway, let's get the grid going here. Let us see here. So it was Ethan, the debutant, on pole, followed by Josh, who has multiple poles so far this season, followed by Crypto, made his debut last time out. He's now got a full-time seat in the Williams, followed by Dynamic Duo, P2 in the championship, followed by Dobo, who's P3 in the championship, and our championship leader starts P6 following that invalid lap in qualifying. Another debutant last time out from Addiction also finds himself in the Alfa Romeo seat. He gets P7, followed by Cthulhu in P8, Charisma into P9, the Red Bull driver. We are missing Zampa tonight. I believe Zampa's got a gig on, I think. Hopefully Zampa decides to stream his gig, because he streamed the rehearsal. And I'm like, let's raid Zampa after the race if he's still about. But let's see here. Believe that is everyone in now. And I believe that is the grid. Let's just double check before we tell the drivers to ready up. So Josh, Crypto, Dynamic Duo, Dobo, GB, Addiction, Cthulhu, Charisma, turn up with a brilliant lap time there in P10, Pneumatic, Brabus with a debut in P12, followed by Dubsy, RAF, Codzilla, and Ranga. So that should be everyone. That is the grid set. Alright, the grid is now set. Hopefully everyone should be readying up, and we're going to find a time for the drivers to ready up for. And hopefully there's no more lobby issues. Alright, good luck everyone. Make sure to not ready up. I'm scared someone new's gonna ready up early because they don't know. Hopefully they know not to by now, but I mean, some of the new people are not aware because no one reads the rules because they're lazy. And Kevin is now in the tier 2 chat. Welcome in, Kevin. You've joined late again. But, lol. Anyway, I've not seen anyone crying in the chat just yet, so I feel like we're okay. But we do have 3 minutes before go time. I'll have a quick look. Last time out was won by GB. GB on his bogey track in Brazil got the win following pens from Ranga and Freddy, who also have found themselves in a seat. Freddy has joined the team of Ferrari. Ranga has joined the Aston Martins, and he'll be starting from the back following his quali ban. And during the qualifying, he may receive another one. We'll see. But Pneumatic says let's go, let's not go, because that's not ready up early, because there's still 2 minutes. Drivers picking their setups. And their race strategies before we get stuck in here. Pneumatic. Let's go as in let's get hyped, but not let's not ready up early. Just remember your setups. And Banger Boy, who's also who's Banger Boy again? I need to look. Who's Banger Boy again? That is Tantrum Turnup. That is yeah, that is Pneumatic's brother. With people having different Discord names to their and on Twitch names to their gamer tags, it gets me confused at times. But welcome back, Tantrum. It's lovely to have you back. And it'll be another minute before we get started here for 36 laps around the Red Bull Ring, the Austrian circuit. And I'm positive, oh no, Crypto has left the session. He's been having trouble with his connection. And we'll try and get him back in here. Hopefully he can get back in and take control of his car, but I feel like that may screw him. It may rob him of his setup because, you know, stuff like that happens in this game. Even though he's probably picked his setup by now, by the time he gets back in again, it'll probably have just taken it off, but you can hear the tones in the background. The drivers have readied up, and we're getting ready as the 5 lights are on, and Ethan in the Ferrari will lead us away as the 5 red lights are out, and they're gone. Okay, the Williams did a Norris, but we've got our start, and GB's had a lovely start here up into P4, but a contact with the Alpine here as there's cars off in the background. There's a spinner, multiple spinners. Charisma Cthulhu and Tantrum all round at the start here. Meanwhile, we've got Brabus up into P7. Brilliant start for him. Ethan leads us away. Meanwhile, GB on the rear now, as RAF now already getting through on Crypto, who is lagged out early on here. Meanwhile, Ranga and Pneumatic battling already here. But we had a big incident into turn 1, and unfortunately for Charisma, involved yet again. Charisma just has not had the rub of the green. Has been involved in so many incidents in this tier. Meanwhile, Pneumatic getting ahead of Crypto. Crypto not been able to rejoin, it seems. Meanwhile, Ethan started on the hards. We'll have a quick look at the tyre strategies. Ethan starts on the hard. Josh in behind starts on the softs. Cthulhu in now to fix what I assume is damage on that Williams. Meanwhile, and Crypto says he needs an invite. I did send him one. I'll see if I can send him another one here, just to try and get him back in again, in case the first one didn't work. Hopefully we can get Crypto back in and it doesn't screw him too much. But Ethan now has started on the hards. Josh started on the softs. Crypto has been able to join now. Meanwhile, Josh in behind, as we see Ranga now all over the rear of Brabus. We've seen both Aston Martins go for the softs as Brabus goes off now, runs wide, as the DRS now will be enabled this lap, which will allow the drivers within DRS range the opportunity to overtake. One Brabus losing the rear. Tantrum picks up a time penalty as Ranga now coming through, as well as Dobo through on the inside of Addiction. And Addiction may have ran into the rear as the camera won't switch. Switch! Dear Lord. Spamming the button and nothing happening. Meanwhile, GB, Dynamic Duo, the two championship rivals, have both been promoted 2 places off the start here, up into P3 and 4, and are now fully with inside the DRS of the train, led by Ethan on his debut here. Ethan is in the best position at the moment, considering he's on the hards here, can do a hard medium or even a hard soft, whereas the drivers behind on the quicker tyres is going to want to get ahead of Ethan and dispatch the Ferrari as quickly as possible. Meanwhile, Addiction gets back through on Dobo. Dobo's ran off. RAF's gotten through, as well as Ranga here. Ranga through Josh. There's a battle for the lead, as well as Ranga now on the inside of RAF. Sends it in. Brilliant send from Ranga. Dobo looking for a way back through again. Meanwhile, we've got Dubs E off now. There's a 3 wide between Brabus and Pneumatic as well here. And Pneumatic now on the inside of Brabus. Will he look for the move? Pneumatic sends it on the inside. Bit of contact with the rear of the Red Bull. And meanwhile, Dubs E looking for his way through on Pneumatic. Pneumatic still trying to find a way through. And round the outside, Brabus covers that move off. Dubs E's caught the rear of the Haas. And Dubs E now, unfortunately. Oh no! Oh, he just about ghosts. Oh my word. Meanwhile, there's chaos here through the final corner as RAF gets ahead but loses out now. Addiction's through. Ranga may be through into turn 1 here as we've got the Alpine of Dobo as well. Absolute chaos here in the midfield. Ranga's been shut up so many positions here from the back all the way up to P5 now. But he is 4.8 off the lead now. Can RAF find a way through? Meanwhile, Ethan looking for the lead. Can't find a way through. RAF now gonna look for the move on Addiction. Too far back to make it stick. But currently Ethan starting on the hards here may be the way to go, as we see Some cars ghosting here. We're still struggling with connection in this lobby. We did a restart, and it's still a bit shoddy. Meanwhile, Crypto is fully back in again, and Addiction's had some sort of little error that has allowed RAF back through again. As Addiction runs wide now, and it may allow Dobo into this fight. Meanwhile, Ethan on the rear now of Josh. Josh is around another 10 laps to do on these softs if he wants to go with mediums. Meanwhile, Ethan gets ahead of the Aston Martin driver, as you can see. GB now looking for the move. Meanwhile, we've got RAF and Addiction battling again here. And Addiction now on the inside of RAF has the DRS as well. This is a brilliant battle between RAF and Addiction. And RAF now sends it very late on the Alfa Romeo and has somehow pulled that move off. Brilliant move from the Mercedes. Meanwhile, he's got loads of cars over the rear. Meanwhile, we've got Codzilla on the inside here. And we're going to do our old trusty technique of keeping an eye on Codzilla's telemetry to make sure that he is... as there's a Mercedes going around, and that's Dub Z, as Crypto comes through. Dobo in the pits. And meanwhile now, it's Dynamic Duo side by side with Josh. Josh has had a little bit of an error now that has allowed the door to be opened for the AlphaTauri of Dynamic Duo. Josh now round the outside, and all this battling may help Ethan head off into the distance now. He's now 8 tenths clear. Can Dynamic Duo stay inside the DRS of Ethan? It seems he is going to. Meanwhile, RAF all over the rear of Codzilla now. As RAF now touches the gravel a little, that would have sure been a warning. Meanwhile, Dynamic Duo now outside of the DRS of Ethan. He needs to get caught up very soon, otherwise Ethan, it'll be his race to lose. Meanwhile, Codzilla now on the inside of Addiction. Can he find a way through? Meanwhile, we've Josh in ahead of Dynamic Duo. Dynamic Duo also may concede to GB Sanderson as well here. And GB on the inside now. Gonna make that move stick. But importantly, they're still out of the DRS range from Ethan now, and that needs to be closed before Ethan disappears off down the road, because Ethan on the hards will be on the faster strategy as he's on the reverse strategy. But can they get caught up now? Josh dropping back. GB almost loses it into the wall. A mega save from our championship leader. Meanwhile, Josh still not able to get inside the DRS of Ethan, and they need to close up sooner rather than later before Ethan's hards come into their stride, and he heads off down the road. But Ethan is yet to gap the drivers behind. The gap is still at 1.1. If I were Josh, I'd be using a little bit of battery here just to get inside the DRS, because once you're inside the DRS, it's easier to save your ERS. Meanwhile, the Red Bull swap for positions here. Charisma gets back through on Brabus here. Meanwhile, the gap between Josh and Ethan still over a second now. Can Josh close up? And he's got a time penalty, which is going to add to the stress of the Aston Martin driver here, and that is not going to help by any means. And this may allow Ethan to now head down the road. And the drivers behind Josh just can't seem to find a way through. GB can't find a way through. Meanwhile, Dynamic Duo was already struggling on his own. Meanwhile, Crypto and REF is in the wall. REF around in the Mercedes. And struggling to find first gear there, it seemed. Meanwhile, we've got Addiction still in the rear of Godzilla. Godzilla trying to catch Ranga here. And Ranga may be coming in. Ranga is coming in. Very early stop for Ranga. But he may do a soft hard from here. Or even a soft medium soft. I don't really envisage a two-stop here. But maybe Ranga, if he has the pace, could make it work very quick on that early stint on the softs. We'll see what tyre Ranga goes on to. It is the mediums. And unless he wants to go for a very long stint, meanwhile, we do have GB following Josh along now. And honestly, I would say GB needs to dump the battery here, because otherwise Ethan is going to have an easy win. GB needs to clear Josh now, who's struggling on these soft tyres. You already seen he's picked up that time penalty, so GB needs to get a move on before his reserve Ferrari teammate starts to make some ground here. Meanwhile, Crypto gets ahead of Addiction as there's a Mercedes of Dub Z already lapped here. Dub Z's had a rough time out here in Austria. And GB now on the rear as the cameras just won't switch. It is not turning on. I'm spamming the button. Oh, thank you for that. The button works as the move's already done. But anyway, GB now needs to deploy the battery and head down the road behind Ethan. Otherwise, Ethan is just going to skate off into the distance, and there's going to be no hope of catching him here. So some battery needs to be used in order to catch the Ferrari teammate, but the longer this goes on, the more the gap is going to start to build to Ethan now. Meanwhile, Josh now closing on the rear of GB. And this battling is not helping either GB Josh or Dynamic Duo's race here. Meanwhile, we've got Ranga ahead of Brabus through the final corner, and Ranga trying to use those fresh mediums here. Could be going for the two-stop is Ranga. We'll see how quick that is. REF coming in for an early stop, potentially onto the hards here. Meanwhile, that's Brabus picking up a time penalty. Josh looking for the move on GB. Does not get the move done, and he may have opened the door to Dynamic Duo now round the outside here in turn 5. And what a move it'll be on board with the helicopter here. And Dynamic Duo with a lovely move around the outside through 6 and 7. And Dynamic Duo now into P3, and Josh not been able to use the pace we know he has after starting on the softs here. Meanwhile, GB now dropping back from Ethan, as I had predicted. Needed to use more of the battery if he did want to catch Ethan, and Ethan's just going to head off down the road here. It does seem like Ethan has now hit the point in the race where the hards are now quicker than the mediums, and I believe with the battling as well, that is going to allow Ethan to get a debut win here in Tier 2. Meanwhile, GB still defending from Dynamic Duo and Josh. And I wonder, is Dynamic Duo here getting impatient? Meanwhile, we've got Crypto on the inside of Coldzilla here, as we're getting horrible camera angles. Jesus! I've never been more annoyed at camera angles in my life. They have been horrific. The worst camera angles you've ever seen in your life. Meanwhile, RAF now around the outside of Tantrum. Bit of contact here. And Coldzilla now on the rear of Crypto, still battling here. As Dynamic Duo looking to close up to GB, and you see the gap between GB and the leader here continue to build. I wonder, is Dynamic Duo now going to look for the move, but he may have went a little deep, which may allow GB a way back through again with the DRS. And GB now round the outside looking for the move in his championship rival, and you can see this battling is not helping their battle for the lead. But do they care? They're more worried about each other here in the championship. GB now round the outside of Dynamic Duo. Dynamic Duo has the inside, and lovely battling here, and Dynamic Duo dives it back up the inside and will keep P2. Lovely battling here between our championship rivals of Dynamic Duo and GB Sanderson. GB currently leads the championship by 19 points, but that could all change here in Austria. Meanwhile, Josh, struggling on those softs, comes in, and I would say it will be for the hards, or maybe mediums. Mediums could go 20 laps, and Josh is going on the mediums. He's not going for a similar strategy to Ranga, who is going for the soft, medium, soft, I'm sure. And Josh now is going to exit just ahead of his teammate. Now, his teammate has 5 laps older mediums. I wonder, is Ranga going to give Josh any headaches here? Or is Josh going to pull Ranga along, which I think may be the smart move to do here. If Ranga just stays inside the DRS of Josh, Josh on those fresher mediums can just carry him on down the road here. And the Aston Martins could work together for a good result here. Meanwhile, Coldzilla still following Crypto. Crypto and Coldzilla have been battling throughout here. Meanwhile, Dynamic Duo and GB, as I mentioned before, that gap now to the lead is now at 4 seconds. Meanwhile, though, Ethan, as we mentioned, the lead, Ethan has picked up a time penalty as Coldzilla now inherits P4 following Crypto now coming in for the hards. And normally I would say lap 18 is the perfect time to come in off the mediums or hards. Usually you would do 18 laps on one stint, 18 laps on the other around Austria. But you can be realistically 4 laps either side. But you may want to leave it as late as possible so that you have the best tyre life possible to the end. Will we see any drivers try the medium soft or even the hard soft? Meanwhile, there's a driver going round, and that is of Brevis. Savage, his front wing completely gone, and he's only on 1 lap old hard. So Brevis now, and he picks up a time penalty, which is not going to help Brevis at all here, entering the pit lane. Meanwhile, Dynamic Duo comes in looking for the undercut on GB. It does leave the door open though to GB coming out on fresher hards, but Dynamic Duo going for the undercut here in the AlphaTauri. And now the gaps are really starting to form here. We've got Cthulhu following Dobo, who's out on the mediums here. Dobo doesn't seem to have the best of times here. 9 laps on those mediums. Meanwhile, Josh is back in again. Does Josh have damage? He does have damage, and that is really going to ruin Josh's race. Josh was in the battle for the top 4, and now he's going to be on a recovery drive until the end. Meanwhile, GB Will GB come in to the box to cover off Dynamic Duo, who's already boxed? And GB going to stay out because he can see his teammate of Ethan is already in the box, so GB does not want to be held up. So GB's going to have to go out another lap here. He may go for the softs, or he may just have to do an extra lap before he does head onto the hards, as we see Ethan in the lead now, out on the mediums, and he's going to be side by side with a Red Bull of Brebis, I believe. The already lapped Red Bull. Meanwhile, Ranga is in P4 though. I don't know if he's going to take those mediums to the end. It would be some stretch if Ranga could pull it off. Maybe a late safety car could really benefit Ranga in this race. Oh.
Became the youngest winner of GP at just 18 years and 228 when he won the 2016 Spanish GP. Coincidentally, Sebastian Vettel on the top of that record and came second place in that same race.
Hello, am I back? I think my mic is finally back. Hopefully it's not doing the audio cutting thing that GB had mentioned. GB had mentioned that my audio was awful, and sometimes that happens on rare occasion where my audio just starts randomly cutting. It hasn't happened for quite some time. Meanwhile, Godzilla all over the rear of Addiction into the double right-hander to finish the lap. Meanwhile, GB staying out a long time here before he wants to head on to the softs, which is quite surprising. I don't know how effective this is going to be. I wonder, is GB hoping for a late safety car? Meanwhile, we've got Godzilla now in P7. Gets the move done on Addiction. As we see Cthulhu now still on the rear. Meanwhile, we see GB finally come in. And GB now will surely come on to the softs, but he'll have been definitely undercut by Dynamic Duo by a considerable amount. I wonder where GB is going to come out, and can he be effective on the softs? GB comes out on the hards. I mean, fresher hards will still be effective here. He'll be able to push flat out on these hards, but I would have expected the softs at this late stage in the race. He's now going to just need to absolutely use these hards flat out, I guess. Meanwhile, Dynamic Duo and Ranga having battles here. Dynamic Duo getting through on Ranga, and Dynamic Duo needed to make that move because he now does have GB on fresher tyres. 4 laps fresher tyres, that is, heading on down the road. Meanwhile, we do have RAF on the rear of Charisma. Charisma's going to defend this into 5, and RAF's going to have to wait a little bit longer. And I wonder, is Ranga going to stay out in these mediums, or is he going to come in? We will see. As Ranga now does have the DRS off the lapped car of Brebis, I believe. As we have Tantrum and Pneumatic, the brothers battling here. Oh, there's a bit of contact, and both brothers are around! I don't believe it. Both brothers come together. They are not going to have a great time at the dinner table later on as both brothers come together. Tantrum now with damage, and Pneumatic may even have damage as well here. Meanwhile, RAF gets through on Charisma during that spell there. But both brothers of Pneumatic and Tantrum now coming in to fix their damage. Meanwhile, we've got Cthulhu, who's done 21 laps on in the Williams there, down in P12. I'm going to double check something. Actually, we'll wait for GB to potentially make this move before I check that, as GB now with the DRS on Crypto is 5 laps better cards than Crypto, as we've seen a very Ferrari strategy here. As Crypto defends the inside, GB now trying to find a way through, really revving the engine there, struggling to upshift, as now he chooses the outside to go on Crypto round the outside. Little bit of contact and a little bit of desync along with it as well. Meanwhile, RAF now continuing to battle with Charisma. RAF losing the rear, and almost as GB's gone off. GB, our championship leader, off with Crypto as well. Both GB and Crypto off in the gravel. Let me switch camera, please. Meanwhile, as Addiction having another monster drive here, up to P6. One of the most consistent drivers you'll see over the last 2 races here. Meanwhile, Godzilla picks up a time penalty. As Crypto picks up a 5-second time penalty, retires in the pits, calls it a day, and he's not happy with that incident with GB. Meanwhile, we've got RAF and Josh now on the rear of Charisma. Josh is going to let off early because he can see the battle as there's a bit of contact between the Red Bull and the Mercedes now. And can Josh find a way through? Charisma's going to come back at RAF. He's going to choose the inside, is the Red Bull. Sends it on the inside now. RAF looking for a bit of a switchback. Charisma now has the inside line into 5. Will RAF get the move? Charisma defending very well here, keeping the Mercedes behind. Frustrating the Mercedes and the Aston Martin here. Meanwhile, RAF letting Josh through. A bit of team orders, even though they're not a team, I just think they're friends. Meanwhile, Josh massively losing the rear before the final corner there. A massive snap from the Aston Martin. And GB now following his contact, I assume, with Crypto, as Charisma picks up a time penalty, which is not going to help his race. GB now heading to the road after Godzilla now. And as RAF now getting back through on Charisma, and Josh has gotten through as well, as Dobo now boxing for sauce. Cthulhu is as well. Charisma has to back out of the brakes, almost into the rear of RAF yet again here. And almost a massive coming together from Charisma yet again here. Had one very on lap 1 here. Meanwhile, Josh defending from RAF. RAF all over the rear of the Aston Martin, who seems to be struggling this time out. Josh, a very quick driver, but unfortunately has not had the rub of the green, and a couple of mistakes have not gone his way. Meanwhile, RAF, now you can see the rear light flashing on the Mercedes as he's trying to catch the Aston Martin, who's on 5 laps fresher tyres, as he's got the Red Bull of Charisma in behind. RAF struggling with the rear. Can Charisma find a way through on the Mercedes driver? Keeping an eye on the battle between GB and Godzilla. Charisma goes deep again! Oh my lord! He did it even worse the second time around. Last lap was close, this lap was even closer. And Charisma almost demolishing RAF from the race. And hopefully Charisma can remember where the brake pedal is. Oh, and RAF's coming in. And Charisma had to really back out there to avoid contact from RAF. But RAF has had enough of the mediums, probably coming in for the softs, potentially for the fastest lap here. I think he's seen the writing was on the wall here. He knew Charisma would get ahead on those fresher tyres. And we have had a very chaotic Austrian Grand Prix here. Chaotic with the lobby, chaotic with contact, chaotic with moves, and chaotic with strategies a bit. A lot of different strategies, multiple two-stoppers, which I didn't think I'd see. I did think Ranga was going to try the two-stop, but I think he's just going very long in the mediums, and currently it is working, as Godzilla now is catching Ranga. And I will double check now. Is the safety car on? The safety car is... Let's see here. Where's the rules? Here we are. Safety car is... Yep, it is on. It's on reduced, so we've not had a safety car glitch as we've had in previous races. This is just... no real incidents have been big enough to bring out the safety car. Meanwhile, Dubsy battling with Brebis as they also here have a Ferrari in the middle of them. The Ferrari gets through. That may be of Ethan, or it may be of GB. I believe it is of GB. And Dubsy now round the outside of Brebis. Lovely move into P12 here. And I do believe that was, yeah, it was GB. Meanwhile, Godzilla continuing to catch Ranga's. Ranga comes in for a very late stop. I mean, he may get the fastest lap here, but he will not benefit from gaining any positions. He's going to lose a lot of positions here. He's not going to have enough time to really recover. If he had have pit sooner, he would have had more time to recover. He will exit probably ahead of his teammate of Josh, but he may only get past. Meanwhile, there's another yellow flag out here for a Mercedes, and that is RAF now. He's had a spin through turn 5, may have used too much of that inside curb, and unfortunate for RAF now. But does get through. Meanwhile, Cthulhu now inside the DRS of RAF following that spin. It will allow him to battle with the Mercedes driver as it goes a little off at this stage. And Dobo now lapped by as Josh picks up another time belly. Dobo now lapped by Ethan. And Dobo coming back at Ethan, but I don't really know what it's... Having a bit of a knock-on moment here from Brazil a couple of years ago. Meanwhile, GB battling the Mercedes of Dub, I believe. Yeah, it is of Dub. I mean, the DRS would have surely helped GB start to close up to Godzilla now. Brevis picks up another time penalty. As our closest battle now is Cthulhu and RAF, but RAF starting to build that gap. Meanwhile, GB starting to catch Godzilla here. And GB getting DRS from another lapped car here of the Mercedes, and that's Dubsy yet again, I think. Meanwhile, Godzilla continues to catch. Meanwhile, Ranga should get ahead of Addiction here, but he will be 9 seconds down the road from GB, and I don't really think he's going to have enough in the tank to do much more. Oh no! Ranga! Big contact with Addiction, and Addiction's out! I don't believe it! My controller's turned off in the excitement, and it's a late safety car! It's a late safety car that's absolutely thrown a spanner in the works here! Oh my lord! Oh my lord! Ranga's absolutely annihilated Addiction there! I can't believe what I've just seen! Addiction got so unlucky, absolutely couldn't have done anything there. Ranga just clipped the rear of Addiction, and there was nothing Addiction could do. That was his race. Done and dusted now, but now Ethan, who pretty much had the win in the bag now, may lose out to Dynamic Duo due to that 3-second time penalty. And there's still a lot of drama that is yet to happen here. Meanwhile, Godzilla goes off track, letting GB through now. But Ethan does come in on the sauce. Dynamic Duo needs to come off the sauce as well, or onto the sauce. Everyone now coming in for fresh sauce. RAF staying out. And I believe for a lot of the drivers, staying out may be the way to go, because you gotta just get caught up to the pack now that they're that far back. Meanwhile, we do have Dynamic Duo on fresh sauce now, and it is a battle for the lead yet again between Dynamic Duo and GB Sanderson. How is GB? If GB finesses himself in another win here, we've got to have some words. GB is 30 seconds back from the lead, and he may potentially finesse himself into a win here. But in order to do that, he will need to overtake his championship rival in Dynamic Duo. But I do believe GB will get caught up to the pack here. We do have a couple lapped cars involved. We have the lapped car of Cthulhu. We've got RAF picking up a time penalty onto the safety car, which is not too great. And the safety car will be in this lap. It'll allow GB to get caught up. It'll allow Godzilla to get caught up. But Josh, I don't think is going to make it there in time. We've got Charisma that's way far back. And we'll have 2 racing laps with Michael Massey making the call. And Crypto has now left the session after having retired a while ago, and Ethan now is going to somehow pull 3 seconds in 2 laps. Dynamic Duo just needs to dump the battery now in order to not lose out to GB, but GB has 2 lap cars in the way of him, so this may be a win on the cards for Dynamic Duo as we now get restarted now. Ethan now 1.3 ahead, very important here. We're going to have no DRS under this restart. Does Ethan have enough in the tank to pull the gap to Dynamic Duo? Dubsy picks up a pen, but can Dynamic Duo stay within inside the 3-second gap to Ethan now? Can GB catch Dynamic Duo? What will happen here on the final laps? Very interesting to see. The penultimate lap we're on now, and Ethan leads us away 1.4 in the lead. Dynamic Duo 1.5 behind, and Ethan is going to have to pull some a serious gap. He's got a yellow flag now, And I don't know what that's for. A couple of lap cars maybe letting drivers through now, as Cthulhu picks up another time penalty. Meanwhile, Cthulhu's retired. Cthulhu off into the gravel. And I can't even see what's happened there. There's no camera angles. Why has he gone straight off there? Who knows? Meanwhile, we head on to the final lap. Ethan now sets the fastest lap. He's got 1.2 to pull in this final lap. Does the AlphaTauri of Dynamic Duo have enough in the tank to catch Ethan? He just needs to stay within inside the 3-second margin. And Dynamic Duo will have the win here. Dynamic Duo will have his second win of the season after winning in Italy. Can Dynamic Duo win again here in Austria? Pneumatic picks up a time penalty, battling with Brebis Savage, and Dynamic Duo now 1.9. It's 2 seconds is the gap. The gap needs to be 3 if Ethan wants to win here. Meanwhile, GB still with inside 1.2 of Dynamic Duo. Ethan now into the penultimate corner, through the final corner. I don't think it'll be enough though. Ethan now has had a terrific race, but that penalty has cost him with the late safety car. A Dynamic Duo wins in Austria. Ethan finishes P2. GB not close enough to catch Ethan. Will finish P3. Ethan does get P2. Coldzilla now in P4. Josh P5 does get a good recovery drive. Meanwhile, Ranga jumps Charisma on penalties. RAF now gonna finish ahead of Dubo, but Dubo may jump RAF here on penalties, which will help Dubo in the championship. As I've had controller disconnections. What's wrong with the controller? Just why is everything going wrong here? GB says FML after getting his 3rd podium in a row. So relatable. Yeah, I hate getting podiums, GB. You know, I get podiums so often. You know, I'm sick of that. You know what I mean? Ethan in the chat says he did not need that safety car, and he's absolutely right. That safety car has cost him the win. He had a 12-second lead at a point, did the Ferrari driver, and now Dynamic Duo gets his 2nd win of the race. Is he Lucas Blakely? That is a very poor Lucas Blakely, if that is Lucas Blakely. Why is his chin shaped like that? It kind of looks like Lucas Blakely, but I'm not sure. It's a weird chin. No, Lucas. Anyway, Dynamic Duo is your winner, followed by Ethan, who gets the fastest lap, followed by GB. And Dynamic Duo, importantly, closes the championship lead here. Cthulhu does still classify. Unfortunately, Addiction does not classify, but I'm sure, unfortunately for Ranga, a big penalty may be on the way for the Aston Martin driver. We're going to get the race director here. If RB will work! Oh my god, I'm going to break this controller soon. As we're going to try and get through the race director here in time. And we now have got the race director, thank the Lord. We're going to get Ethan and Dynamic Duo into the party if we can. Let's see, where is Dynamic Duo? I'll have to type in his name. GB, as you come in, did you see who the driver of the day was? Because I did not.
I didn't know. I've not picked that either. Hello?
Welcome in, Ethan and GB. Ethan, as you come in, make sure to tick the box in the party. Do you know?
I have done, yeah.
And all right, I'll wait for that. We'll see. I think we will start, unfortunately, with GB, who was in P3, who was very disappointed with how that race went. But GB, tell us about your race and It's very relatable. You know, we all get podiums all the time. We get them so often that when we get P3, we're just like, oh,
Uh,
a P3. Oh, I'm sick of podiums. I don't
I
want them
shouldn't
anymore.
have
You
been
know.
near the front to win anyway. Ethan was way quicker over that, but it's just yeah, shit show quality, shit show strategy where they didn't give me the tyres I asked for, and then I get taken out by my championship rival's best mate, and then yeah, it's just one of those races, I think. But oh well,
Yeah,
it's still
we
third.
will. We will definitely see what the stewards say.
Yeah,
Following the incidents, there was definitely,
I'm holding my
I
tongue with that one.
believe, there's two very big incidents there that weren't even the one you mentioned, GB, that I'm sure the stewards will
Oh yeah,
review.
I saw those like out the corner of my eye with addiction and uh I can't remember
Ranga.
who the Ranga, and then the other big one as well. I didn't see that one, but yeah, I'm sure there'll be something from them. But yeah, that was interesting. Stick drift apparently makes you forget how to brake. So oh well.
Is that what Crypto's saying? Does he have stick drift?
Apparently stick drift, but going through a corner and just plowing into me didn't feel like stick drift, but we'll see. Hopefully, got an on board of it, but I mean, we know I did. I was streaming
Um,
it, so
if Crypto does have, I mean, if he does have an onboard, maybe, I mean,
it'd be helpful. I'll try and get one
it
if he
would
does. But
it would be helpful, but at the same time, I would frown a little bit upon on someone racing with stick drift because you openly know that is
yeah,
dangerous.
I've it is what it is. I
But
don't
anyway,
want. I don't think it is foul play, but it felt like it at the time. That's for sure.
mhm. but
When it's championship rivals, best mate.
mhm. But yeah,
Oh well.
GB like the rest of us, so sick of getting podiums. You know, we're just so
I know
unhappy. You
it's
know.
lucky the safety car saved my life, but I've
But
never
anyway,
cheered as much for someone
we're
crashing.
we're gonna move on to the debutant Ethan, who it's his first race here in Tier 2, and dominated the whole way through. But
Yeah.
unfortunately, at the end, that penalty cost him crucially with a late safety car. But Ethan, how'd that race go for you?
Well, it did actually. It went perfectly, let's be honest, because I started on the hards. Basically, everybody else was on the mediums, and I still managed to pull away. So, once I pulled away, I had a strong suspicion that I could easily win this race. Then I got the penalties, which I was fine about because I knew I'd be able to get the gap, and I assumed most other people would get a penalty as well. And then the late safety car at the end. Well, before actually I go on to that, on the hard stint in the second stint, I got damage. I hit the wall. I hit one of the walls in the final corner, and I still managed to kind of maintain my gap. And then obviously the safety car at the end basically put for that sort of certainty I wasn't going to win the race.
Yeah, I was following you throughout the race, and I thought at the very start there, the drivers behind on the quicker tires, they need to clear you immediately, and they were staying behind, which I was surprised to see. And then once you got outside the 1 second, I was even more surprised to see no one actually pushing to get back inside the 1 second. They kind of just let
Yeah.
you escape, which was surprising to see. I was on board with the drivers behind. I was like, are they going to use the battery? And they were just like, no, we're happy being outside
Yeah,
the
I was
DRS.
kind of maintaining like a 1.2 second gap, so it's like I'm just trying to manage that.
Yeah, and watching it, I was just like, unless the drivers get inside the 1 second again, he's just going to pull away because his tires are going to get quicker than theirs, and just what I had said happened.
Yeah.
Which, but anyway, regardless, Ethan, it was a terrific race, and unfortunately, you've been royally stiffed by that late safety
Yeah,
car.
absolutely,
If it
yeah.
weren't for that time penalty as well, which I think we've all had time penalties ruin almost perfect races for us, and unfortunately Ethan does not get the win here, but I'm sure we'll see you next week, Ethan, in Silverstone, where I'm hoping you can then get some redemption
I hope
and
so.
hopefully get a win there as well.
Yeah.
But we're going to move on to the man of the hour, dynamic duo P2 in the championship, and crucially, with this win in Austria, will close the gap in the championship to GB. Dynamic duo, as you come in, make sure to tick the box. And how did the race go for you? All right, we're just going to have to relay Dynamic Duo's message to the stream. But how did that race go for you, Dynamic Duo?
Well, on the first stint with my mediums, I was sitting behind them at the hours train, hoping that we'd stick with the Ethan. But I knew eventually we'd get in our mediums and in transport as well. And then, for some reason, me and GB, I was a bit at one point when we, I was trying to work, like, not close the gap back, but it's so that stepped me up a bit.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think for the most if I keep I've seen GB, don't know what quick ones is to be honest. I can't really defend him much in that case. Whatever.
You're cutting out a bit, but I think we caught the majority of that. Anyway, I want to know, you're in P2, you're around 12 seconds back. What was your reaction once you seen the safety car come out on lap 33?
I was just
Human.
I was in Wonderland. And then, for some reason, it kept, I think it was Charisma behind Ethan, but he sticks me up.
Mm-hmm.
Thinking, I'll let him get away. That's fine, he was at 1.2. So, it scared me a bit, but, in the end, kept it within that 3 seconds and got the win, crucially.
But I'll relay your message to the stream if no one heard. I can't quite sure if anyone did hear, but Dynamic Duo was just saying he was jumping and cheering once he seen that late safety car come out. And even with the lap traffic, he was able to get his way through and get that second win of the season, which closes the gap in the championship. And with 3 rounds remaining in the championship, it'll be very exciting to see who will win it. We do have the championship between GB Sanderson and Dynamic Duo at the moment, and there is an outside shout of Dobo as well winning it at this stage, but he's going to need some mighty results to go his way in the final 3 rounds. But I wonder, is he still mathematically in it? I've not added the scores yet. But, anyway,
Let me have a look quickly. I know mine and Ravage, I think our gap is down from what was 19. I think it's down to 13, I think. Because of him, neither of us
you've
got
both-
pole off fastest lap.
yep, you both pulled the gap on Dobo, though Dobo did finish in
Eighth,
P8, I believe.
Yeah, it
What's-
was P8. So
What's funny about that
he
is
is
I believe that
mathematically
is...
in it 100%, but I think he needs Ravage to retire 1 race basically because I miss a race.
Mhm.
So-
I do think it's quite hilarious, the consistency of our top 3. Dobo with that P8, that's his worst finish of the season, which if I would take P8 as my worst finish, you know. But funnily enough, Dynamic Duo's worst finish of the season is P5, which came in round 1 and 4, and GB's worst finishes was P4 in round 1 and 5, or well, yeah. So I would take those worst finishes, to be honest. all our top 3 have been incredibly consistent. Never really had any DNFs or any real bad races. But we do have 3 rounds left of the season, and it is still all yet to be decided. And we will see what happens as we head into the British Grand Prix next week. Meanwhile, tomorrow we will head to Bahrain for Tier 1. And
Jesus Christ.
Cookie will, I'm sure, be battling Cloud throughout. I'm sure.
I'll be in
Just
sector
realised-
2 and Cookie wins. Oh my God. You fucking baller.
just-
Oh my God.
I just realised Cod's here. Cod, do you want to talk about your race as well?
You know what? GB, you're welcome, by the way. You know, let's put that in there right now. You're welcome.
I don't know why you did that. What?
Because I had a penalty. If I didn't have a penalty, you ain't getting P3. No, I just thought it was fair at the end of the day. You know, I'm doing, you know, if it's one track that I know how to run ABS on, it is Austria. That is one track that I basically nailed because I've done many practice with a couple of esports guys around there since. So that's one track that I know of that I can nail ABS with no ABS on. So yeah, I mean, I just thought it was fair at the end of the day. You know, I just wanted to put Joshi and fucking Ranga in the place. You know, while they're below me. You know, giving it the big un in the chat, saying that Joshi's got his little homies to defend. Yeah, okay. Didn't work out well, but no, it was a fun race. I enjoyed it, and I'm looking forward to tomorrow going around sector 2, and Cookie wins by at least over a sector. So yeah, it's gonna be fun. Happy days.
Well, I'm sure we will all have fun. We'll have GB, and I don't think Andy's going to be with us
No,
tomorrow.
it'll either be Charisma Zampa or no one, or some completely
Or-
random stranger I'd bundle into the back of a van.
Can I commentate
Or
instead of racing?
No.
Or we may have GB and Crofty in the booth, you never know. Or maybe
Yeah,
we'll
if
settle
I
for
kidnap
GB
him,
and
yeah.
Martin Brundle. You know, I know they may be busy in Australia, but we'll get them in. But anyway, we will find someone to raid here on our way out. Let's see who's live. Is there someone we could raid? Let's see. We'll raid B-Roy. Let's send over the views to him. But for those in the chat, if you haven't followed yet, please do. And also, on your way over to B-Roy, make sure to give him a follow as well. We'll be back tomorrow for round 9, Bahrain, and back next week with Silverstone round 10. But we'll see you then, and goodbye.